colleagues from BOEM for being here. I've had nothing but positive personal relationships with BOEM staff on the West Coast. At the end of the last task force meeting, I could tell Joan needed a hug, and I gave her a hug. All right, in this day and age, sometimes it doesn't go well, but she looked like she needed a hug, and I gave her a hug because I like her and I like my friends at BOEM. But I have a clarification or two. Principal from BOEM's testimony today, our colleagues from BOEM, it was noted that Principal Power was very heavily dependent on the Department of Energy for making their project viable. Well, that's true. The last we could tell, it was somewhere between 40 and 50 million would have been available from the US DOE for that project. But the reason the project didn't happen is that Principal Power, to make just 30 megawatts work with 5 wind towers, were seeking surreptitiously a $300 million ratepayer subsidy in the Oregon Capitol through state legislation. And we only knew about that because we had to drag it kicking and screaming out into the light, and then it died. And then there was actually a task force that tried to further justify making that kind of an expenditure. So when that task force happened, we began comparing the costs for this kind of offshore renewable energy. The best we could tell, reverse engineering, because it was very hard to get any kind of information out of Principal Power, but basically looking at all the studies, looking at their submissions to BOEM, looking at projects back east, we could figure out that those 5 wind towers would have cost around $400 to $500 million to do. And the best we could tell, their own numbers told us it would take 28 cents a kilowatt hour to produce that electricity. Ladies and gentlemen, when we look at these lights right up here, that's 7 cents a kilowatt hour. 7 cents a kilowatt, which is a wonderful thing for Oregonians because we have affordable power in the state. Apparently, Central Lincoln PUD buys that renewable power from Bonneville for 2 or 3 cents a kilowatt, and by the time we pay for it, the rest is what it costs for them to get that energy to us. So I cannot help but point out, and when I represented at the BOEM Task Force meeting, I was Commissioner Katie Jacobson's substitute, and I'll never forget when we had the numbers came from BOEM, from MREL, about their latest cost projections for offshore stuff. Not only is it not 28 cents a kilowatt hour, the same footprint estimated using apparently some of the engineering from WindFloat is that they're now at for that same site off of Goose Bay, they're at 63 cents a kilowatt hour. That's what $63 translates per that's how you do the arithmetic, Commissioner Yamamoto. That is 63 cents a kilowatt. Now, when I mentioned that and how horrible and uncompetitive those numbers were, I'll step down at this point. It's not really, this is not an adequate opportunity for me to explain everything that's going on here. The communities are about to have major conversations about this, ladies and gentlemen. And it is time that we step up. What I learned, one last thing, when I went to the task force meeting as a very senior gentleman from the National Marine Fisheries Service told all of us that we are about to experience unsolicited requests from these companies. These are now the biggest companies in the world. They are coming for Oregon's ocean. And we can do a planning exercise, but as he pointed out, I understood what he was saying. It doesn't matter, because under the law, they can apply for these unsolicited requests. They will drive the process. And at this point, our only hope is to ask for a 10-year moratorium on any new offshore industrial activity in Oregon. Try to sort this out. Look at the governance structures here. And finally, engage Oregon, not just on the coast, but Oregonians in general. I think if nobody really even knows that this agenda is in play. And what we need to do at the community level is explain to people what some people want to do to our ocean and at what cost. And ultimately what those companies are banking on with those crazy, crazy costs is that they can persuade the California legislature or a couple billionaires from Silicon Valley to bankroll projects in Oregon waters, and we won't have a darn thing to say about it. And I want to ask anybody, who thinks that's okay? Who thinks that Oregon's ocean can become industrialized at a massive scale and we basically don't have anything to say about it? Now, I've got 2 or 3 things I know that would make a big difference, but we don't have time to talk about them today, and I look forward to sharing them sooner rather than later with you. But this is a time, ladies and gentlemen, for us, the Oregon coast, to unite. And I think the most important constituency, this is what I heard important, is what those commissioners think, what the local government elected officials think about this. We're not just any other stakeholders. We are another branch of government. And I know from conversations that we're having that we're just about to begin talking about these issues in public. And I call on my friends in the conservation community and other stakeholders in Oregon to join us in a dialogue and a conversation that's not going to be micromanaged by anybody. It's going to be us talking about it. And at the end of Congressman Schrader's outstanding roundtable on this subject, I think he said the most important thing at the very end. He says, it's what we do next, what the communities do next, in terms of exposing what's going on, what the costs are like, how this process is playing out. That's what's most important. That's what's going to make a difference. And I invite my colleagues at OPAC, I was on OPAC for many, many years, to potentially ask themselves to either take action today or make this an agenda item for the next meeting. We should have a lot more information about a suite of activities that we could all undertake that would protect our interests. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna.